All right, we've got a very, very special treat for you now. I've spent the last week or so, I want to say, reading a new book from Ronnie O'Sullivan. Unbreakable, it's called. And I have to tell you, I was very sad when it finished. There's a lot of good stories in there. I've read all of Ronnie's books. And who better to talk about the book with than Ronnie O'Sullivan himself? Ronnie, I think it's your first time in studio with us.
It is, yeah. Not the first time that we've sat down and spoke, but the first time in your studio, which I've seen you before, and I thought, I wonder where that is, and now I get to see it. It's a fantastic little place you got here.
Yeah, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. People will have seen, a lot of Off the Ball fans will have seen our previous chats. I think one of them was in the dressing room at the Crucible in 2018, and then the following one was a year later in Ireland with myself and yourself and Jimmy White. It was great fun. Some serious stories. Saw you at the Crucible stage door a couple of weeks ago as well. Quick fist bump as you were leaving the match against Luca Brissell. It was insane because I was at the your second session, I think it was, against Rafai when you won 7-0 in that mini session, and I was just like, there's a buzz when you're playing in the Crucible, and it's incomparable to any other player, but you're used to it at this stage. And
of course, listen, even that tournament there, I finished off terribly. I was really disappointed with how I played, and not losing is just part and parcel of the game, but when you play well at the Crucible, no feeling like it. Such an intimate sort of place, and so I love that place. I love and I don't love it, if that makes sense.
A bit of both.
Yeah.
We were discussing outside your love of running, and we were talking a bit of football. I'm playing a bit of football myself to a small degree, but like running for you is just such a cathartic thing. I was thinking about writing the book and the process of writing a book, but also your talks about in the forests in England and going for the coffee with your mates afterwards, and just the whole process. You really love it.
I do. I mean, I don't know what it is. It's just sort of it's so opposite to snooker in a way, because snooker is just indoors. The culture of snooker is that you eat a lot of fried foods, you pints of Coke. The snooker player is not the most healthiest a bunch of people. So in some ways, running has kind of kept me healthier. Whereas in snooker, it's easy to let yourself go, really. So I've sort of found a way of if I do the running and I do that, then I'm balancing the books up, really. That's all I'm doing, because obviously snooker is my job, it's what I do, it's what I spend most of my time doing. But I think it really is a massive part of why I've been able to keep going and enjoy my snooker, just because I found something else in my life which I really love, and it gives me so much, which then allows me to kind of, handle the stresses of playing and the difficulties of snooker that it presents.
Would you get into coaching at all? Athletics coaching, I mean.
That is something that I always think about. I think, like, when I finish playing and, obviously got time on my hands, what would I like to do? And I think definitely being a running coach would be something I would really like to do, yeah.
I couldn't help but feel the happiness emanate from the pages when you talk in the book about going with Greg and Sonny, your two mates, going out for runs, and just the crack you can have, and even the fun runs, like those are the park runs on a Saturday morning. They're obviously huge in Ireland at the moment as well. Like, my mum gets involved at Rossmore Park up in Monaghan, where we're from. Everyone across Ireland has their local park that they utilise. It's such an unbelievable thing, and clearly it's something that it brings people together as well. So it's a chance for you to unwind, but it's also a chance to just keep yourself fit for snooker as well. Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, park runs are great because obviously at 9 o'clock in the morning, a lot of the races that I do when I run for my club, it used to be like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You can't eat your breakfast, you're kind of like waiting all day, and you're stuck in traffic on Saturday. You get there, do the race, don't get home until 6. So your whole day is taken up, really. But that's for the real dedicated runners, But then you got the park run, it's like, it's round the corner, get up. You do your 5k, you're back home by half 10, still got your... So I think park runs have become such an unbelievable thing for me, for people's health. I think doctors now recommend their patients before they put them on Prozac or whatever tablets they say, why don't you go and try the local park run? And people go and do it, and they're like, they don't need the Prozac, So it's kind of a brilliant thing to do. So yeah, I'm a massive fan of the park runs. I love it. I think it's great. There was a great line in the book where you're talking about Ayrton Senna and how he spoke often about the greatest days of his life were when he was go-karting as a kid. Like, you paint a lovely picture of going to the snooker clubs in Ilford and the surrounding areas when you're a kid, and going in and probably smoke-filled rooms and money on the table and the fruit machines and the slots and that sort of thing. It sounded like a lovely childhood, and you clearly found a warmth in snooker clubs that maybe attached you more to the sport.
I always say, playing snooker as a junior, as an amateur in my snooker club days, they were like the best days of my career. I loved it, and you dream about turning pro and you turn pro and it's great, but then it all becomes a bit, like a travelling circus. You're here, there, everywhere. Obviously the pressure of people watching, your everything you do is kind of like scrutinised, I suppose. But as an amateur and a junior, it's just get your cue out. Ronnie O'Sullivan's, whoever, table 14, and you get your little bit of paper and you go over there and you put your bit of paper on the side, and there might be 3 or 4 people watching your game, and then you win and you take your bit of paper up to the 1-3-2, and he breaks over 50. Yeah, I had a 69, 72 and 81. Okay, and that goes on the list, and you sit around for an hour and a half and you wait for your name to be called out again. And I always say I watched the Queen's Gambit, and it was a little bit like when I was watching that, and she was like, she went up to get a where am I playing? He was like, I'll give her a bit of paper, and it just reminded me of when I was playing in the junior competitions, and I loved them days more than winning any world championships, any UK championships. You can have all them. My amateur days and my junior days, all day long, best days of my life.
It's amazing. There was a line in the book where you said snooker is like the best drug you've ever experienced, but you also said it's like different to golf and tennis and other sports where, a tennis player hits a bad shot and they have the next shot to recover. You hit a bad shot in snooker and you have to sit there for X amount of time and wait for your opponent to miss. So it's torturous mentally, I can imagine. Yeah,
because it's sort of it's one of them sports that, like I also said in the book, like there was a point when I remember I was playing in a tournament and I potted a long red and I cleared up, and it was the first time in my life where I just thought, if I get in here, I'm going to clear the table. And that's what happens, when you get to the highest level, like nowadays. Most of the top guys, if they're on, they're just going to dominate the table all the time. So you don't really get a chance to put your mistakes right. You don't, you have to sit there, wait, and it's tough. A lot of the top players that played the game, you listen to some of the stuff they say, and a lot of them say, the games you win are by when you're sitting in your chair. Like, how do I deal with the dialogue of like, I've made a mistake, I'm sitting in my chair, don't beat yourself up. You kind of like got to think, next time I get to the table, I'm ready to score some points. And a lot of players don't, you can beat yourself up to a point that when you do come to the table, you're like, you make another mistake. And then, and do that against someone like John Higgins, Stephen Hendry, Mark Selby, Neil Robertson, you're going to do a lot of sitting in your chair.
There was I've often watched yourself at the Crucible, and even you can see yourself in the TV camera before you come out, and you're pacing the corridors. Unlike a lot of players, you're looking at the newspaper cuttings in the wall of the Crucible halls. But that is clearly a ploy. You don't want to get caught up in the little chit chats that happen between some players. You don't want to be spending your time, as you say, in the practice room. If you're practicing 15-20 minutes before a match, it's a bit late. So was that always your process, your way of dealing with the pre-match routine? I guess Only Fools and Horses helps there as well, when you stick something on the TV.
Not really. I just remember just thinking, every time I go in the practice room, all I feel is stress and pressure, not from myself, but just from everybody, like the other players that are in there. You can see they're pacing up, and you can see they're nervous. You can see they're like anxious to get on the practice table. And I'm on the practice table, and I'm trying to hit a few balls, and I hate the thought of clock watching and playing. So I'd rather not be in that environment where there's a lot of, not just my stress, but their stress, and we're all like, So I think I'm better off staying in my dressing room. I don't think 10-15 minutes now is actually going to make much difference to how I'm going to play out there. So I started watching Only Fools and Horses one year, and I thought, I'm just going to enjoy the build-up rather than put myself through that. Let's just watch a bit of that, had a laugh, had a cup of tea, the knock on the door, 10 minutes, right, put my bow tie on. Because normally I'm practicing, rushing, putting my bow tie on, you're out in 2 minutes. I thought, what's the point? I'd rather just take my time, and then we'll see what happens when we get out on the match table.
It's about taking control of the situations. It's like Steve Peters and the psychology behind everything. Like the chain paradox and all those little things. Control what you can control. And it was even the same. I think there was a part in the book where you're talking about, I think it was going to China for a tournament, and you're in the hotel on a Wednesday or a Thursday, and there was a lot of people in the lobby, obviously waiting for selfies, autographs or whatever. And I think you said something to them like, leave me alone essentially for today, tomorrow and Friday, and I'll sign everything for you on Saturday, which I thought was a great way of doing it, because they respected that, and you signed everything for people on the Saturday, and you got your couple of days of relative peace. So it is about controlling your controllables, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, you have to, because I was going to China, getting like bombarded with like everywhere you go, like, and in the end I was scared to come out my room because I thought if I go downstairs I'm just going to spend like an hour, like 45 minutes just getting out of the hotel. So then the next thought was I just want to go home, and then I'll get beat and think, yeah, I'll go home, and I'll get home and I think, what's the point of going all that way? And I realised it wasn't that I wasn't enjoying it, I just couldn't deal with the constant bombardment of pictures, autographs. So what I said was, right, next time I go, I will do pictures and autographs. But like I said, it's like Monday to 12 o'clock till 1 o'clock. I'll do an hour. We'll just get it out and done, and then like give me 3 or 4 days rest, and we'll go again Friday and do some more signing and whatever. So yeah, like you say, it's sometimes just about, it's not, you're not saying no, but you're kind of like, creating a framework where everybody kind of knows where they are. Let me get on my business. Let me do what I've got to do, because I mean, like, the thing is, you go to these places, they want to see you win. They want to see you get to the final. They're supporting you. So I thought no one's actually benefiting from this. I'm getting beat early going home. They're kind of like thinking, I wish Ronnie was still in the tournament. So I thought it's better for everybody if we just take control of the situation and kind of go, look, this, and everyone was great with it, So it worked out pretty good.
It's amazing for people who have yet, the book's only out yesterday, I think, so people won't have maybe got the chance to read it or pick it up just yet. But there's a great parts in the book where you're giving advice to people. Every chapter has a different name, whether it's addiction or anxiety or competition or running or connecting. Like, they all lead into little lessons at the end of the chapter that people can nearly pick up. And you speak very, very frankly about that I suppose period you talk about from 94 to 01 or thereabouts, where things were going downhill and there was a lot of addiction and I guess dealing with things in your life in the only way you knew how at that point. Was it difficult to open up about that sort of stuff, and your dad going away to prison and that sort of thing? Because obviously you were a kid at that point. I still, there's certain things that could trigger me off about if I start talking about my dad and this and that, there is. But like I say, them times, I think like you say with the book, it's sort of, like they call it Unbreakable, but it's quite weird really, because all I've done is I've been broken a lot and put myself back together. I think that's what the book's about. It's about, we're all human beings. Some people deal with stuff brilliantly and, they have a smoother path in life. Mine wasn't, and I took the wrong road, and I think I've paid the price for it. And I've kind of I'm involved in a sport that requires, powers of concentration, lots of stamina, lots of mental pressure. And I'm like this fragile person trying to sort of succeed in that sort of. But people aren't going to learn anything from the perfect, quote unquote, perfect person. Nah. So I think you need, people aren't going to listen to someone without flaws.
Yeah, and I think that's what the book is. It's sort of like I've kind of had to sort of work out ways and ways of navigate my way out of tough situations and into a better place. And sometimes there is, for me, I can foresee now where it could potentially go wrong, and I'm much better at planning and pacing myself and kind of like getting the best out of myself, rather than being brilliant for like 2 or 3 months. I can be, I can manage the pace a bit better and sort of stay on track a little bit longer. And it's a bit like managing the tyres on a Formula 1 car. Like someone can go off bursting around the track and be 10 seconds ahead, and you think, oh, right, but then actually the guy that's second is like managing tyres better, doesn't have to do a pit stop. The other geezer has to do a pit stop. He's on, and then he's like 10 seconds behind the guy that's managed his tyres better. And I'm just like that snooker player that's managed to work out a way of how to just keep going without like being like full pelt, but without kind of like dropping too far back either. And I just keep going and going and going, and hopefully sometimes I hit top form and you nick a little bit of a win here and there, and you're happy, and it's more about longevity and staying on the track for as long as I can.
That reminded me of a funny story from the last time myself and yourself spoke. I think was yourself and Jimmy White. You were talking about a driving lesson you once had where you were going fairly fast, I think. Like, you were a pretty quick driver yourself, so I think you were terrifying the driving instructor. Watch that interview back if you want to hear that story. But those psychological things, like, I think it reminds me of 2 things that you've touched on in the book. The dimmer switch, like flicking the dimmer switch on your life, but also the zoom out, like almost looking at yourself from a helicopter perspective, and how those things really can help you just relax.
It's quite weird really the first time, because obviously that was a Steve Peters nugget, which was the helicopter, and I was like reading it in his book, and then I asked him and he was like, it's just about can you imagine being above looking at your life. And I was in the World Championships in 2012, and I was like, I was like so in it, and I was like, oh, you know, I was like, and I just kind of just visioned myself being in this helicopter and looking above, and all I could see was the Crucible, Sheffield, the whole world going on, and I thought, oh, ain't it great? Like, I'm here playing, you know, like the whole world, you know what I mean? I was like, this is not
outer body experience.
What's so terrifying about this? So I was able to sort of get myself out of it just through like using that sort of metaphor or whatever you want to call it. And I was just able to just get like a grip of like how unimportant snooker really was. Whereas at that moment I'm sitting there in the chair, I'm thinking, oh mate, this is like so scary. And then all of a sudden it's sort of like become like, oh, we're just playing in my front room here. This, you know what I mean? Really, that's all it is. Yeah. Sticks and balls on the snooker table, 900 people watching. Like, try and enjoy it, you know, because there's so much more serious stuff going on out there than this. So, you know, there's little things like that. And like you say, the dimmer switch. Another friend of mine, Kevin, was like, you know, we don't have to totally turn that off, turn that on. So, you know, it's like we can play about with it. And I thought, you know what, that's actually quite a good way of putting it. And I've tried to sort of, well, I have done my life like that, but it was just a good metaphor of like, you know, how people can just kind of like just be turn the intensity up and down as and of when, you know, and just learning how to peak and pace yourself. And, you know, you don't always have to be brilliant all the time. You know, sometimes average is okay, because, you know, look at a marathon runner. They're not, they don't care. You know, 4 months before the race, they're not hitting their times, but come 2-3 weeks before the race, that's when they want to be in peak condition. And it's a little bit like a snooker play, you know. You want to like pace yourself to be playing right at a certain time. So, you know, you have to learn what works for you. When am I at my best? So they're the sort of things that you kind of learn along the way, you know.
It's funny that you talk about having that attitude in 2012, because like I think back of all the 7 world titles that you have, 2012 is probably the most impressive. They're all impressive, obviously, but 2012 in terms of pure snooker. Yeah. And then people always ask me which was your favourite. Like 2013 after a year out is pretty damn impressive too, you know. But was 2012 the most satisfying for you?
I think so. Yeah, I think like I felt like I played my best. I felt like I was hitting the ball as well as I ever could. Probably, you know, 17 days at the Crucible. You know, you can start. It's hard to like play great from start to finish, but I felt in that tournament I did. Yeah. You know, I might have had a little dip against Robertson in one session, but other than that, I think every session I played, I felt like I played really well. And so for me, that was probably the most satisfying of them all. I think obviously 2013 was quite unbelievable, really.
You were working on a farm for a lot of that, for some of that.
Yeah, for about 6-7 weeks. Yeah, I managed to. Like, I was so bored. I thought I've got to find something to do, like, but I don't want a job. So I said I'll do a bit of voluntary, and that's what I done. So yeah, you know, that was pretty good as well. So yeah, no, there's been some quite unique experiences, if you like. But yeah, certainly 2012 was a great year for me.
And you got to beat Ali Carter as well, which
yeah.
I can only feel nice sometimes.
I know.
Ali Carter's like the bad guy sometimes in some of these matches. But even that, it's funny, that first world title in 01, like you were 25 by that point, and everyone was probably thinking, this guy's unbelievable. When is he going to win a world title? And I know you'd spoken about how Steve Davis and Stephen Hendry stopped winning at 32. So in your mind, you're thinking, I only have 7 years left here to win trophies. But and even in that last session against John Higgins, not an easy player to beat, but I think there was a missed ball at one point. Yeah, Higgins got in, brings it back to 17-14. You're probably thinking, here we go.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember it, red in the middle, and I've watched it back a few times, and I was like, how the hell have I missed that red? And then he's come back potting, and I thought, you know what, that could have so easily gone the other way, because he's the type of player that once he gets on a roll, you know, you're just like that, sitting in your chair as a passenger, and you know, you don't actually have to do anything wrong against him. That's the bad thing about it, you know, is that he's that good that he can, you know, do that to you. So yeah, that was a pretty scary moment. But yeah, I was at a bit of a late starter. You know, I think Higgins was 22, Williams was 24 when they won theirs. I was 25, and then you sort of think, well, I've just got another 7-8 years of this, and then after that. So really, it was quite weird, because at 35, when I met Steve Peters, I thought my career was over. But actually, they've been the best 10 years or 12 years of my career, you know, and that was just because he helped me kind of not be so hard on myself and allow me to just, you know, just try and get a grip of myself a little bit, you know.
We've spoken before about that 5 minutes. I think it's down as 5 minute 8 seconds maybe now, that maximum break in 97. The fastest, which will never be broken in my opinion. I think you in fact described it to me in an Australian accent when we were sitting down in the Crucible a few years, which is brilliant. But the one I actually, that day I met you a couple of weeks ago at the stage door walking into the Crucible. I was going in to interview Jan Verhaas.
Okay.
And we sat down and we spoke about the maximum in the World Open in 2010 against Mark King, where you've basically after the first red, first black, what's the prize for a maxi? And like people were like, this is the cockiest but most brilliant thing I'd ever seen. And Jan Verhaas, I think the way he described it to me was he knew what you were probably going to do and leave the black maybe at the end, and of course he nudges you and says maybe do it for your fans. You just get down and smack the final black in after leaving it there for a couple of moments. What are your memories of that? Like that was an unbelievably you're in control of it. Like
that was a laugh. I just found it quite hilarious. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to do things that sort of like, you know, you sort of think, oh, what do I need? You know what I mean? I fancied the 147, and I knew the brake prize had been tampered with, and I just thought, oh yeah, this would be a bit of a like. Just something.
You're making a point, basically.
Yeah, making a point. Yeah, and that was quite funny. It was quite funny. And it was funny. Yeah.
Do you have a favourite maxi?
My favourite one was against Ding Junhui in the final of the Welsh Open. It was the final frame, so I was 8-3 up, first to 9, and I played so well in that match, and I played so well in the tournament before, and that's probably one of the best periods of where I played faultless snooker for about a month, where I felt like I just didn't miss, and then to finish it off with a 147 against Ding. And obviously the last red down the cushion was with the left hand. I didn't expect to pot it. I actually played a bad shot on the last black to get to the red. I was nowhere where I wanted to be. I thought, I'm not going to be able to pot this for the rest because I'm not the best rest player anyway. I'm all right. So I just thought, left hand is my best shot here, you know, because I've got to try and get the white down here.
Remember the shot, yeah.
And then I hit it, and it went straight in the middle, and I was like, oh. And I looked at the white, and I thought, hold on a minute here, that's going. It just went between the pink and the. Like, I didn't play that.
Is that the one Willie Thorne was on commentary, I think?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I didn't know. I had an idea the white was going down towards the black, but I didn't play it to come between the pink and the black.
It's perfect.
And the white landed, and I looked at it, I thought, wow, that was hilarious. You know what I mean? Then the pressure was on. Like up until then, there was no pressure really. Because I thought, I'm not going to make the maxi because I see the red was there, and I thought, if I get 14 reds, 14 blacks, sweet. And as soon as that red went in, I was like, oh dear. All right, like if I miss from here, then that will be a complete nightmare. And I remember hitting the yellow so bad, and I've had to use the pot the green with the rest. And I was thinking, like, how am I here? Like, what have I done? And then I potted it, and then the brown, and then all of a sudden I potted. The pink weren't easy, but I was playing so well at the time. I just thought, I ain't missing this. And then I got the black, and I thought, a little left-hander. Because obviously the left hand, no, I don't think people know, but if it wasn't for the left hand, I probably would have gone. I don't know if I'd have carried on playing, because that was the only, like, whenever I used to play left-handed, I used to feel like I felt like a proper snooker player again. I felt like my arm feels good, my bridge hand. I thought I wasn't as good, but I felt confident. I thought like I didn't have to think. Yeah. Like my mind would switch off, and I could just think, I got a real true hit on the ball, and that's what like allowed me to keep playing. You know, and it was never the answer, but it was just like a bit of it gave me a bit of respite. You know, I felt like whenever I put the cue in my left hand, I felt like I could play without thinking. And to pot that final black with a 147, I thought, you've been so good to me. Now you can have your, like, you know, you are going to pot the final ball. You know, it was unmissable. If it had been a bit missable, maybe I wouldn't have done. But, you know, it was just, I remember that 147. That was my favourite one. Just
don't let Elaine Robbie do see you hitting up the left hand.
Oh, yeah, poor Elaine. Yeah, never forgive me, that guy.
No, poor Elaine. It was funny. A couple of years ago, I was doing a piece on News Talk. Our colleague station here in the building, and they were asking me, you know, can you review the best sports books you've read this year? One of the 5 I picked was Tommy Caldwell, Dawn Wall. The documentary had been done about his climbing in El Capitan in Yosemite National Park, and you read about it in the book. Age 22, he loses his index finger, but climbing is everything to him, so he overcomes it. It's all he knows. It's similar to your snooker story in that you take setbacks, but you'll always overcome them because it's the sport you love, so you have to. You've no choice.
Absolutely. It's like, it's weird out of, you know, it's just like, it's that refusal to ever accept defeat, like, you know, that this has got the better of me, and that's the only reason why I kept playing, because I have this, I was saying earlier, because we've been doing interviews for the last 2 days now, and it's been great, you know, obviously talking about the book and whatever. But I've got this memory of when I was 12 to 16 where I just remember feeling invincible, where like all I used to do was get down, get the cue out my case and just pop balls, and it was good pretty much all the time, you know. And I never used to worry from one day to the next, was it going to be there, weren't it going to be there. It was just like the most easy, natural thing that, you know, that it felt. And then all of a sudden I lost my way, but while I was losing my way, I always had that memory of how easy the game could be. So for me to give in, it was never an option, because I was always on that search. And I was like, whenever I used to play and I'd win a match or win a tournament, like I played terrible, people used to go, he shouldn't be saying that, it's a liberty, you know, you can't. But I really meant it, you know. I felt like I'd played so bad and won tournaments, but I never felt good about it. And all I could think about was, I just want to show the world what it's like when I'm playing well for long periods of time, and just to show everyone like how easy I can make this game look. And that's what frustrated me more than anything. And like you say, the guy that lost his finger, he just refused to give in. And that was a little bit like me. I refused to give in because I had this dream or this passion to hopefully overcome what you know, the difficulties that I was finding with the game, because I truly believed it was possible that I should never lose, because I believed that when I was at my best, I can pot any ball on the table, and I had this belief that if I could do that every day, it's impossible for me to lose. So I had this unrealistic expectation probably, but it was still like a belief in my head, and that's what kept me going. So I call it stupidity, I think. Out of stupidity, I was like, I kept going. It's a bit like the guy with the darn wall. Like everyone was saying, you can't climb your finger. Everyone was saying, don't do it. But out of stupidity and out of his love for it and out of whatever it gave him, it was like, no, I'm going to find a way. And that's what you do, I think. You know, some people do, not everybody.
And it's making that sport or endeavour that you love look easy as well. Like Tommy Caldwell, that guy in the Dawn Wall, made climbing look easy, and it's clearly not an easy pursuit. Similar to snooker, like the cue ball control, and as you say in the book, you know, allowing the cue ball only to move a few inches from shot to shot, that looks easy, but it's completely not. You described it as tiki-taka. You know, Iniesta and Xavi never passed the ball too far to each other. They made a brilliant game look simple. Yeah,
absolutely. And like I say, from that period from 12 to 16, I felt like I had the game under manners. You know, you look at some of the footage videos of me when I was playing 14 and when I was at 15, and you look at the way I moved the ball around, and it really was. And then if you look at some videos from me from when I was 18, obviously got YouTube now, to 24, you'll see how my style just got worse. But then I kind of like, when I got to 25, I reconstructed my game, my technique, and again, that's why I say the 147 in 5 minutes and 8 seconds, I always say it was probably my worst 147 by a long way, because my cue ball was nowhere where it should have been or where I would have liked to have been, because I was getting on the wrong angle of balls, and I sometimes had to rely on playing a great shot to keep the break going, whereas nowadays I leave myself so many more options. So I'll play into an area and I kind of got that one, and if that one's not right, I got that one. And you know, I've got a much better cue ball control now because of seeing a coach called Frank Adamson, who used to coach Stephen Lee, and he kind of, we tried to, I knew I had to reconstruct my game and make my technique so much better that I was able to be a bit more efficient, and I had more control over the cue ball and where it was going to go. So I always think every sport there's an art, there's an easy way or a hard way of playing the game. I started off playing it the easy way, then got into playing it the hard way, and now I've tried to get back to playing it the easy way. And it's a bit like you say, the Barcelona team when they play football, you know, they're always ready for it, and you give it to me, I've got 3 or 4 options, and it's like, that's how you want to play, you know.
But the Frank Adamson that you mentioned, it's crazy. Like I think he passed away just before Christmas of last year.
He did, yeah.
And I think, and a lot of people think about players, professional snooker players, practicing and going in for, say, 5-6 hours and just potting balls left, right and centre. You talk in the book about going in with Frank and across 8 hours maybe potting 36 balls.
Yeah, that was like
not tedious, but slow, coached. The smallest little minutiae of your technique were perfected under Frank. Yeah, I mean, he pulled it apart, and it was hard because I just thought it was going to be a quick fix. I've always wanted quick fixes. I thought if I move my shoulder 2 inches, move my leg this 1 inch, it's always like, I thought it was just like something. And, you know, but with Frank, it was more, no, we're going to sit down, like, do you think, and I was like, you know, sometimes I finish a shot and it, like,
at first I thought, oh, like maybe 30 seconds or a minute and we'll get on with the next shot. And then I realised it was like at least 20 minutes of him explaining to me this, that and that, and I would have to listen to him. And it was just what I needed. And, you know, we kind of... He taught me so much. He taught me so much about this game. And Frank, you know, all the great snooker coaches I've worked with have never been fantastic players, apart from Ray Reardon. But Ray Reardon was never a technical coach. He was more about shot selection and how to trap your opponent and how to defend well. Not defend well. So that was different. But Frank, technically, you know, was the best I've ever worked with. And I loved my time with Frank. You know, like all he had was he was like cheese sandwich, cup of tea, no spices on his food. He was just the most loveliest human being. And we had, you know, I think we had some good times together.
Kept it simple.
Yeah, he loved the game. You know.
What I hadn't realised, a lot of people don't realise, and I was speaking to Ken Doherty and Stephen Hendry about this before as well, is the importance of the cue. And like I think we have a couple of hurls, like Irish hurls in the background here, and they're made of ash, and we use an ash cue. Like there's a very funny segment in the book where you're talking about some players give their cues names. There's a Leila on the circuit apparently, and you're like, because no two bits of wood are ever the same. That's what I've learned. I'll be out with my missus looking at some wooden flooring or a small coffee table, and I'll pick it up and stroke it and have a little sniff, and I'll say, yep, this is the one to go for. A lovely bit of wood we can polish up and steam in oil. There's no innuendo here, by the way, intended. But like she says she'll look at me like I'm mad. Ronnie O'Sullivan, expert in dead trees. Like, that's brilliant. Like, but it is so important to pick the right cue and piece of wood for the cue.
Yeah, I love. Yeah, like, you know, I'll go into it, like I think it was at the RAC club yesterday, and they've got these cues there, and I pick this cue up and I just shake it like that, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know exactly what it's going to do. I know it's going to sound when I hit it. You know, I'm a carpenter at the end of the day. You know what I mean? That manages to pot a few balls. You know, so when I look at a bit of cue, I'm looking at it like, you know, like what is this like? You know, I know. Before I even look at some bits, and I think, oh, that's going to be a nightmare to play with. You know what I mean? So, yeah, no, I love wood. I love, yeah. I mean, you'll see snooker players, like I've seen players have like 100 cues, and they're sitting there and they're playing, and they're, you know, you can drive yourself insane with cues. I mean, Stephen Hendry's cue that he won the 7 World Turks was the worst piece of wood you've ever seen in your life. Yeah, 120 quid from the sports shop. It was a Rex Williams special. It was like a banana.
Nothing special about it.
And it had no cue power in it at all, but he knew how to play with it. And I was like, you know what? So when people talk to me about cues and wood and that, I go, listen, you just got to find the right bit of wood for you. You know, cues nowadays that are made, they are different to old cues. The ones that John Paris makes. You know, when I first started using a John Paris, I was very hesitant to. My cue was a Burwatt Champion. It was like 120 years old. By the time I finished with it, I'd ruined it. I'd had it chopped about, this, that, because it got a lot of wear in it. And I had to stop using it. And I was petrified to ever give this cue up. And I had this John Paris cue sitting in the corner because I knew at some point I had to make that transition. And then one day I went, I got this cue out. It was in a plastic sheet. I got it out and I chalked it, and I went and I put one black and went into the pack, and the ball just went, and I was like, I could never have done that with my old cue. And I went, wow, I should have done. I was 10 years. I should have done it 10 years ago. So these new cues, it's like these new golf clubs. They can like
technology.
Yeah,
it's like walking into the Harry Potter, the wand shop in Harry Potter.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and like now I'm like, John, you know, I'm a bit spoiled because I used to think like John Paris could just like produce it like it was, you know. And so then next time I wanted a cue, I said, John, I need a cue, and he sent one over, and I went, it was great straight away. And then one day I smashed this cue into 1,000 pieces, knowing that John Paris could just send me one tomorrow, and he couldn't. He sent me. I must have went through 60 cues and couldn't find one. I went, John, what is going on here? I said, like, the last two you sent me, but the first time he went, it's not that easy. He said, I'm walking the forest like 3 or 4 times a week looking at wood, and is that? And I was like, so anyway, I've now worked out how to get a cue that is stiff to make it a bit more flexy. So I could probably get an average cue and turn it into a good cue now. So, you know, yeah, I mean, that's what snooker players do. They get attached to their cues. It is our wand, you know. It
is a living thing. Would we forget that? That's why it's so important.
Absolutely.
You've been brilliant with your time. I'm just going to finish up with a couple. This is going to solve an argument that we've been having in the office over the last number of weeks. We're talking about natural talent.
Yeah.
Sports people.
Yeah.
There's an element in the book as well where you talk about, not to give too much away in the book, obviously, go and buy it, but where you were given a Rubik's Cube, I think, and you're looking at your dad and uncles trying to solve a Rubik's Cube, having a little bit of difficulty, and you're like, what's this all about? You know, just solve it and that's it. This is simple. And I think I described you in the office one day as one of the most naturally gifted sports people I had seen in any sport. But then I on reflection and looking at the book, I was like, I don't mean that as an insult to the actual hard work and graft that you have had to put in. Do you know? Because it can nearly sound disrespectful. It means he doesn't have to pick up a cue and practice. But what's your take on that? Natural talent and versus hard work?
I think any professional that you see on playing any sport has worked hard. So I refuse to believe that, you know, that people go, oh, you know, he's just talented and go like I'm not having it. You know, every player that's made the grade, at some point the coach has looked at them and gone, they've got the dedication, they've got the desire, they've got the fire in their belly, and they're prepared to work hard. You know, I can make something of this young girl or boy. And then I think you get to the point where, you know, everyone sort of comes through, and then the guys that have a lot of ability but have the work ethic become, you know, brilliant at what they do. So you might look at Djokovic, Federer, Nadal, Tiger Woods, Messi, Pele, you know, all these, Muhammad Ali, they are gifted. They are super, super gifted. But they've always, they 100%, they've put the hard work in. Sometimes them type of players put more work in, the ones that haven't got the talent. I don't know why, you know, and I don't mind being called, you know, the most naturally gifted player, as long as they say, but he's also the most hardest working player, because a lot of the guys on the circuit that I've trained with, if you go and ask Anthony Hamilton, who, you know, how hard does Ronnie work? What is he like? He'll tell you that I work as hard as anybody there is ever to play the game, you know, 6-7 hours every day. Twice a day I'll be in the club, blisters on my fingers, you know, just probably playing too much, sometimes overplaying. And I don't mind being called the most talented, as long as they back it up with he's also the hardest working, because I just think that word talent can get thrown about, and then it becomes like, well, he's wasted, you know, he's like, it's all right for him. You know, he could have done better. He could have done this. You know, he's talented. I'm like, really? You know, so that sometimes, you know, your hard work gets lost. Yeah, you might have talent, but the hard work was still put in. That's my...
Yeah, it's brilliant logic to have. Finally, Ronnie, there's great... I remember seeing an interview years ago with Barack Obama, and he was asked... People had, you know, members of the public had opportunities to ask him random questions. One person just asked, how are you? And like, I was thinking, I was trying to, you know, it was such a simple question, but it was brilliant. It was like, you could have asked him anything in the world.
That's brilliant.
And look, I was thinking about you as well, and just the ups and downs that you've had, and just even when you talk in the book about taking the dog, the Osho, out for a walk in Hindle Forest or Chigwell or whatever it might be, or having your little jam and clotted cream scone or scone, as I call it, cup of tea, the little things now that make you happy, even having your mate Robbie, who I've met before at the tournaments with you, you know, someone that you trust and who's loyal. How are you now? Like, how do you feel after the years that you've had, the ups and downs? Like, are you in a good place?
Tell you what I struggle with. I'm in a fantastic place, but what I struggle with is how I exit this game, because it's all I've ever done. It's my go-to when I'm not feeling great. It's like my church. It's like my place to go to switch off. It's like my meditation. It's like it feeds me in so many good ways. Not when I'm playing competition, but just on a day-to-day basis. You know, a lot of the time you see, you know, playing in the British Open or the China Open, but most of the time I'm just down Walthamstow Snooker Club on my own, plotting balls with my friend, enjoying it, loving it. And I'm scared that at some point I might not be doing that. And that's what worries me. It's like, how do I navigate my way out of the sport and into, you know, retirement at some point? So I'm probably keep playing because I don't know how to do it, you know. It's like, how do I fill that void? I've accepted I'll probably never ever find anything to ever, you know, I thought about creating a new game. Right. I thought about, okay, I can't compete on a 12x6 table. My eyes are not going to be as good. My bottle's not as good. I'm like, these guys are younger. You know, I might create a new game. I looked at maybe creating a game that just has 4 pockets on. I looked at a table, we started playing it. I went, you know what, I like this. It's a cross between pool and snooker. I want to retain a lot of the skill that's involved in snooker, but only using 4 pockets. I was playing this table and thinking the middle pockets get in the way. The middle pockets get in the way of being able to do some unbelievable shots. So it'll be like serious snooker, but it'll be like Luca. Everyone would have to play snooker like Luca Brissell or Judd Trump.
Attacking snooker.
Yeah, because you haven't got the middle pocket, so you're allowed to use the cushions, and you'll have to arc the white, and you'll have to move the white around. A lot of snooker players, you see, it's like stun, top, pot, keeping tight control of the white, because you've got the middle pockets are in the way, so you have to kind of be really accurate with your positional play. Luca Brissell and Judd Trump have got this ability to be able to move the white around. They haven't got the best cue ball control, but it's good enough, but they can get themselves out of trouble because they can whip the ball around, they can banana it, they can arc it. But with no middle pockets, you'd have to play like that because you've got all this. You've got to get from there to there because the other guy can.
Yeah.
And if he can and you can't, you're at a disadvantage. So I thought about creating a 6x6 table with no middle pockets. I can keep playing. Whether it catches on, who knows? But that's how I probably think I could play on until I'm 60, 65 and still compete.
And you could win the first World Championship on this 6x6 table?
Yeah, I'd win it, and yeah, probably.
Ronnie O'Sullivan, inventor. Just
inventor,
to
yeah.
Well,
exactly.
listen, if you have 2 minutes at the end of this, we have a 3-foot table. If you're up for a 2-minute frame,
absolutely.
Just so I can say I lost or beat Ronnie O'Sullivan on a 3-foot, I'm not gonna win, to be honest. Ronnie, it's always great to catch up with you. Maybe the next one we'll do it over a jog, maybe, and somehow film it.
Yeah.
Whether that's in England or over here.
Absolutely.
It's always a pleasure to catch up with you.
Cheers, Shane.
Brilliant stuff.
Thank you. Cheers, mate.
Buy the book. Wherever you get your books, it's out now in all good bookstores. Ronnie O'Sullivan, Unbreakable, I have to say, and I'm not just saying this because the man's beside me. It was a brilliant read. I couldn't put it down, and I think it's your best book. Like, I've read them all. Running was brilliant as well.
Thank you.
And the fiction books are obviously different and brilliant as well. But this one's top notch.
Thank you.
Fair play, Ronnie. Great stuff. Thanks for coming in.
Cheers, mate.